Tonight we are rewinding the tape back to 1984, 1985, when this historic student organization was created. Among us are many faces of that generation who were courageous and determined, together with the late Shipameni, to fight against apartheid, and indeed for the independence of our country. And it's really inspiring to see many of them here, that they have kept that bond. I will not be able to mention their names. Some of them I know, some of them I don't know them. Some of them I have read them in books or in old newspaper articles. But I wish I could mention some. But I really don't know much, because I came after my generation came after that generation. There will be someone to introduce them, and that is Mr. Uhuru Denver, a notable figure in our country, who till today continue to stand for the welfare of our people. Mr. Demas is also a former NANSO president. There are so many presidents here, actually. Yes. If our president was here, would say with a small p. The fellow political prisoner with the late Shipameni. As I said, most of the speakers today here will be representing the older generation of NANSO as well as the current generation. So I'll give him an opportunity to facilitate that part.
Thank you very much, Brother Sonateni, for that kind introduction. I want to thank the family on behalf of the former and current members of NANSO for this special moment to remember one of our outstanding leaders, student leaders of this country. We have selected a few of the colleagues to tell the story of the life and times of Comrade Shipameni in NANSO, in society, in Namibia, and outside. But in fact, anyone that has been sharing that period with Comrade Shipameni could relate to him and can today get up and say anything or everything. But due to time constraints, we have selected a few of the comrades. Frantz Fanon said, every generation must discover its mission, betray it or fulfill it. And I want to leave it to where Pastor Aras had left. Our generation, have we done? Have we fulfilled our mission? Have we betrayed it? If we have betrayed it, is there still a chance to fulfill it whilst we are on this side of our graves? When Pastor Arasef was talking, I remembered a night we arrived in Wolfies Bay when the whole leadership of the NANSO branch in Wolfies Bay was in prison. And Comrade Arasef was the speaker that night at the Lutheran Church. And as he spoke, emotions and tears were rolling. And we were wondering whether one day we were going to see this day in Namibia of being free and independent. So we have lots of memories. I had my chance through the media already to say something, so let me give others a chance. I hope Comrade George Maimbelo is here. We will be starting with him. He is the one that recruited me at the age of 12 years. I was in primary school in Gideon at the AME private school. In '84, he came there and had a meeting in the Silver Hall. Those from MFs will remember the Silver Hall. The announcement said only students from the secondary phase, but I was in the primary phase. But I decided to go and attend that meeting. And that day, I fell in love with NANSO. '85, I came to Shifiti and quickly became actively involved. And as they say, the rest is history. We will have Comrade George Maimbelo. After that, we will have Comrade Nampata, Ulenga. After that, we will have Comrade Herbert Jau. We also talk about the Student Worker Alliance. Then we'll have Comrade Rosalia Shipiki. We will have Comrade Ronnie Tempers. And then we will give a chance to the current leadership. I understand they have selected Comrade Sharonis Booth as the current youth leader to speak on their behalf. But I understand there is also a standby in case she is late. And then we will conclude with our senior president, President Paul Kalenga. Comrade Herbert Jau, it's your chance.
Thank you very much, Comrade Uhuru. But first, maybe to his and the family, know that you are not alone in this pain. That it was for all of us a shock, and it was really far too early. And so many people is finally over. And the last time I met Shix was just a few weeks ago at the Solidarity March with the Cubans and the embargo against Cuba, and then at the memorial of late Marco Hausiku, just a very short while ago. And we chatted and he said, let's talk about politics, because it was always driven by this passion for politics. And then we couldn't make it because, like you, we were shocked to hear this terrible news. Others who started with NANSO, and I see some of them here, will talk about that. I met him exactly the way he was on that photo. When he was a student, should I take this way? When he was a student at the old academy, Paul was the president of NANSO. Maureen Hinda, I saw her earlier, and others, and Lucy and Toya, they were his fellow students. And then Uhuru was a young, fast boy at the time. He could be overlooked, but not overheard. Because this generation of student leaders was special. Was very, very special. And why do I say that? They located themselves and the struggle for education. And the slogan was, education a right, not a privilege. They already were thinking ahead. It was ending apartheid, ending colonialism, ending that repression, but at the same time already building the new Namibia. And what were the elements of this new Namibia? And Chihwameni, together with Paul and others, and BC, that generation was instrumental in saying, this is not a struggle only for students. This is a struggle for our parents, for the workers, for the communal farmers, for the exploited of this earth, to quote Frans Fanon again, to take their destiny into their own hand and to shape a new and different Namibia. And so I'm humble at the same time. I was a young teacher at Jacob Marengo at that time when we met. And it was this young generation, when Bisi Urap, who is also here today, called the teachers who went with Chihwameni and the others on the big boycott on Kasinga Day, 4th of May 1988, and said, you as teachers, and they approached Benulenga, the late Pandeni, the late Ilonga, you as workers, how are we working together to make this happen, to fulfill that task and that mission of our generation? And Chihwameni was key in all these debates because he never fell for the slogan only, independence is the aim or was the aim. It was much more than that. It was to build a just and a new and a different Namibia, not just having an anthem and a flag. And I think this is something that provided enormous inspiration to us. And shortly after independence, I think with Ronnie and that group, he went to study in Cuba. And he came back inspired. He said he's seen a country very different from what he's seen in Namibia. And he's seen what is possible with dedication and limited resources. And he was committed to doing that and to play his part in doing that. And that is where, in closing, where I want to say, Chihwameni was fundamentally different from so many others who entered politics, especially if I call it the post-November 89 generation, who were nowhere to be seen at these marches, at the meetings, when the Makakunyas were waiting outside to beat us. And we had to be fast and fit to escape. They were not there to be seen. But post the election of November 89, in droves, they wanted to be seen by the now ruling party and its leadership. With Chihwameni, the question was always different. Are we living to our principles? If not, it is our job to question. It is our job to raise even the uncomfortable questions. And I'm saying that we can debate the political decisions if we agree with them or not. But one thing he's shown all of us is you do not take political decision based on self-interest. He left a very comfortable position of deputy minister, a rising star in the ruling party in the 1990s. Very few would have dared to do that. And why did he do it? Because he believed there is a need to change direction and to refocus on what the generation of the late 1980s had set out to do. And he felt at this point in time it was time for him to make that massive personal sacrifice and do that. And I think this is something for which we all will be thankful for all the time. To have had a brother and comrade that lived by his convictions. And I think for that we must all be very thankful, and also the wonderful collection of his comrades that he brought together here. So maybe Louise, be proud of that. And we all know being married to political activists is a tough task. You never have your loved one to yourself. You had to share him with hundreds, if not thousands, of other Namibians. Thank you very much, and lots of strength in this difficult time. Thank you. NANSO Namibia, NANSO Namibia, Anta continua.
continua. NANSO ya Namibia. NANSO ya Namibia. NANSO ya Namibia. Continua. We are going to treat them well. We are done here. The neighbors will be wondering what's going on. Minister, I hope you will allow us to treat well a bit. Some of us need it very much. I saw Comrade George Mangelo arriving. Viva NANSO! Viva! Viva NANSO! Viva! Thank you, comrades. I think Uhuru got me really unaware. He told me, I think he sent me a text. Will you come and say something? He didn't say what it is something. And then the unfortunate thing for me that I came late, I'm sorry, comrades. But when he saw me, he decided what it is that I must say. So I'll try and speak to that. These papers I'm having here, they are not meant for what I must say here. I'm having a document, I failed to read it, but it's about an interview Ignatius had in about 1994. It's a lengthy interview, I've not read it. And then by chance, my wife is very organized, my wife of 31 years now. She's not at home, but she told me, no, I saw a letter that Ignatius wrote to you. And I just want to quickly go to the one part that I saw now when I was coming. I'm not very organized. Revolutionaries are not organized, they're just people who do things, and they do the things right. That's what I'm going to do. On 10 October 1991, and I'm hopeful Louise is listening, so that she will know what a wonderful husband she chose for herself. My sister. 10 October 1991, Ignatius was in Cuba. He wrote to his friends, that's me, Marius Kudumo, and Marcos Kampuku. Is Mark here? Having friends and comrades like the three of you have always been an element of moral and spiritual encouragement for me. At no time have I ever doubted that we are big friends and comrades, and that our friendship and comradeship is unshakable. Now, I have not read the whole of the letter. Now, if you really count 1991, it's a long time ago. My third child was born in November that year. I don't treat him like my child anymore. He's my comrade. He's a big boy. That's what Ignatius thought about us. If I was put Marius on the spot, because Mark is not here, it's Marius here, I'm very certain you'd say it remained that way. Even when Ignatius decided that SWAPO is not his political home, and I remained, I can't speak for Mark and Marius, but I know they remained. That friendship did not change, because we're dealing with a car. Now, my brother who from Silverhawk at African Methodist Episcopal, I went there 19, no, I think it was 85. 85 I was okay, 84. Yeah, I went there, I was misled by Jerry Kanjo as secretary for Swapology, and Martin Kapewasha was his deputy. So I was inducted in the Central Committee of Swapology. So I needed to get there to get my briefings and also speak to the VP, Henry Bedway. Because shortly after that, I was going to travel to Katima, and in Katima I had handlers like Kira, the chief of protocol, Yona Tipu, who was that time I think was the chief SWAPO representative in Francistown. So
So I always had to link up with this guy before Charles Shepo took over. I think Charles Shepo changed his name to Vilbert Delano. But all along when I was dealing with him or he was handling me, he was Charles Shepo. But I can't change it because I kept my names. Colleagues, we all need to be very proud of what we did when we were young people. Because BC, I think we're not young people at that time. Your wife was also not young at that time. I don't know. We were young people at that time. We did a very proud thing. I was not ready to say that, but I'll try just to coincide. What I recall happened, and I'm saying this thing because you can see on our platform we are fighting each other for the organization. I think we're fighting for the organization. It's an organization worth fighting for, particularly its legacy. And you can clearly see that everybody wants to associate with that rich and proud legacy. Particularly if you didn't die, because you had lots of chances to die or to be killed. I was followed by a young man, not so young now, Kapama. Kapama was almost killed at the Catholic Church in it's the area called Geminte. Yes. Somebody targeted him. This time the police were driving skylines and so on. And I think we just managed to escape. They kept chasing us and so on. It was a trick, but that's not what we must talk about today. Now, look, there were many other attempts that were made to establish a national students' organization, which unfortunately did not succeed. Around the time when we were hanging around older students like Vekui, Rokoro, we were told they'd made those efforts, but the efforts did not succeed. So that's particularly why we're proud that we succeeded where they died. In 1983, there was a gathering of students. Now, because we don't write and we rely on the memory, I think that discussion happened either in, I think it happened maybe in December or in June. I did not attend that. June, yes, I did not attend that. Because that time I needed to go to Katima, I was still young. My father had a lot of control over me before I fighting a week thereafter. So the students who were there, the dishers, and colleagues, I know you already mentioned Gerson Ina. These guys met the discussion and it was decided the students must get organized. So I came back. I got a briefing from Steve Shores. The time Steve Shores was also doing a BA at the Academy for Tertiary Education before he left. He told me this is what had happened. So what then do we do? Now there were various efforts. The students who were more dynamic and who were better exposed, because they were part of the chaos in South Africa and trying to seek independence or to defy the Afrikaners. They had all gone back to South Africa, including Pele Damaso, who became our first president. In a little way, in the way we understood it, we agreed we are going now to start propagating for the coming or launching Congress. So we started a paper which we naively called the Student Voice. Now, parallel to that paper, Matthew was a way that young man. He was a young man at that time, he was on standard 9. He and Lizette Abrams were writing a paper that looked, by the look of it, looks better. It looked better. Because Kenneth Abrams, Lizette's father, had really put a lot of personal resources in helping with that. So we both were writing about student issues and so on. I think we were more revolutionary, more direct and dynamic. So ultimately, the groundwork was done. The following year, July, we had that launching conference at Diabra. Nice debates there. Is Dave Irawe. Because Dave gave us headaches. He had some rasta here, but he's not talking. The Joe Disho, I think, was mobilized by the CCN, but he was a very religious guy. He's to the Almighty in our constitution. And Dave, I think, were difficult and actually won the day. So, in as much as we started our events with prayers, but we said the CCN cannot dictate to us merely because they are going to take the bill. So we defined as students, and I think we did the right thing. It was not about religion, it was more about, do we get instructions or we follow our mind? We followed Dave's mind. I think there was another boy who was also problematic. I think it was Doubtface. Either it was that Congress or at other congresses where he really became very difficult. So NANSO was launched, and really we got proud memory of Dave, of Pele Damaset. Pele, I think, was ahead of us, but because you guys in South Africa, I think, were exposed to a lot of chaos and so on. But it defined the spirit. Now I see the president who made all these things very dynamic later, because you guys took us to action. Paul Kalenga. Paul Kalenga, your role really was not to force things, but we were dealing with the issues of the culture, of the people. And we were dealing with the issues of education. So what I'm trying to say is, we laid the ground in that the students' organization was launched. Clear aims, both educational, but also, of course, like in school, they've got hidden curriculum. Within what we're doing, we're also fighting for independence. So it was not only getting students together. So that happened in 1984. We're very proud about it. So we stepped aside. I stepped aside 86. I didn't come to the Congress 86. I think that's when my brother Paul then took over as president. Damaset could not stand because he had stayed for very long. Democrats that started with us. Paul took over, and then I think our late brother Ignatius took over in 1988. Yes, I saw on the group you've got a young man called Raku Shikora. That young man disappeared. I've heard this somewhere there in Oshito. Yes, Copeland areas. Please don't undermine that young man. I think he was the Secretary of Education. Very dynamic guy. He did his part. When that strike of 1988 was on, we heard about it in Frankfurt. There was a group of comrades that were released from Ruben Island. They were traveling, and we met in Frankfurt before they continued to Zurich. And they told us what was happening. So when we turned up, the NANSO office was almost closed. We had to put guy there. Rafu were there. I think they terrorized him. I don't know where he ran to. But then we had a gentleman who was no more, Kava. Kava, I think, was part of Natal. So what we did that time was we kept the NANSO office open, but the union's offices were open. So if the students came, because the security branch was watching, they were all over, then the students were just waiting at the workers' office and they were given information. That was more to deal with students that were dislocated from their families. Remember, families did not necessarily protect their children. There were many people who were disowned by the families. So, in short, what I really want to say, because you got me a bit unaware, is to say this is an organization worth fighting for and to associate with. So in that context, understand what is happening on our platform. But also understand that in the dynamics of NANSO of that time, hypocrisy or cowardice were not tolerated. Really, we're trying to say walk a firm and a straight line. But what I want to preach, and I think that's what my older brother Herbert, because Herbert stood for me as a parent when I got married. If I should have problems, I'll run to him. His marriage is succeeding, so mine must also succeed. Political formations are just some forms of expressions. But in the end, what is it that you write to this temple? So, Louise, you married a wonderful guy. We, as his friends, will want to remember him that way. But fortunately, you got to know him because we were also young. He was also young. It's the young people, the children. Because when I speak mine about what I did, or when they hear what is attributed to me, they think I'm telling them about somebody else's life. Please, colleagues, spend time with your family. Talk about what happened. Also talk about your own involvement and role. But most importantly, my brother Bernard, I don't think we've written. BC, I don't think we've written. Although in your chapter, of course, you have to make reference to your wife as well. You also graduated at the same time. So please accept our condolences, but most importantly, understand we are celebrating a rich and a life well lived. Thank you, my brother.
Forward we shall march, forward we shall march, forward we shall march, to the people's government. Forward we shall march, forward we shall march, forward we shall march, to the people's government. There shall be houses, security and comfort. Forward we shall march, to the people's government. There shall be houses, security and comfort. Forward we shall march, to the people's government. Thank you, Comrade George. He's really getting old. He's even forgetting when he recruited me. Yes, Comrade Nambala is coming. There shall be houses, security and comfort. Forward we shall march, to the people's government. Forward we shall march, forward we shall march. Forward we shall march, to the people's government. There shall be houses, security and comfort. Forward we shall march, to the people's government. We promised proper houses for our people, not shacks. Security and comfort. No gender-based violence, comfort, education, health, sanitation. Did we achieve this according to what Frans Fanon is saying? We should answer those. We thank Comrade Shukwameni for organizing a reunion we have been struggling to organize for a very long time. And this is really a proper reunion. Comrade Nambata.
Thank you so much. Director of Ceremony. My name is Nambata. Ulenga is my surname. I joined the Academy in 1986. I'm sorry. I'm also getting old.
Please tell the John Bonfries Academy was our university.
Yeah. The first year was very uneventful. Nothing happening at the academy. Very much quiet. And in 87, Shuameni joined the academy, I think from the University of Fort Hare, and he has really turned the academy upside down. It's normal until Shuameni entered that company. That's when we started with all demonstrations. I remember it was, we were the three of us, Maureen, Shuameni, and I, in Shangri-La, always taking decisions as to the next. And it was around every corner, CIR. When you hear CIR, then you know Shuameni is at the forefront. And that means no classes. We fought battles at the academy with a very strong group as well, of mainly comprising of white privileged students that were at the academy. But at the end of the day, we prevailed. I'm told that I have to stick to 5 minutes. Shuameni and I, the pastor, late Yambo, Maureen, and a few of us were the ones that at the end of the day boycotted the exams in solidarity with the young students that were expelled from university or from schools all over. We were imprisoned with Shuameni and many others that were called Erika Beckhardt and 34 others. I'm looking at Lucy Herbert and Herbert. Lucy Edwards and Herbert. We spent a few months in prison due to student politics, but at the end of the day, I don't know what happened to that case. Okay. Neloise, Pandu, Winnie, Sele, Anastasia, Iggy. Bereaved member of the Shuameni family, comrades and friends, and a special greetings to all the NANSO veterans. They are the women and men who joined the struggle internally when it was not fashionable to do so. The bravest of the brave. It was a time when any association with the liberation movement risked imprisonment, even death. I salute you, my veterans. Since last week, we are gathered here at the Shuameni residence to pay tribute to Iggy, as he is affectionately known, a great hero of the liberation struggle, who was also an unwavering patriot, a mentor, a friend, and much loved husband to his wife, Louise. Father to Winnie, Pandu, Sele, Anastasia, and Iggy. These are the children that were born in front of me. I remember little Winnie still sucking her thumb. He was a grandfather as well. We are here to pay tribute to a man of distinction and of immense courage and a selfless revolutionary par excellence. A man who devoted his youth, his life to the liberation of our people. Iggy was no ordinary man. He was as soft as wool. He was soft-spoken, but was made of steel. As a young man, he directed and discharged the responsibility put on him as a leader of the student movement with dedication, clear vision, and determination. He instilled courage in the young ones. He was their role models. The young ones, the Uhurus, the Dempesh brothers, Dukakis. Who is Dukakis? The Owen Shamenas. He mobilized the youth and turned campus and school into buried grounds. I remember him saying, "Let us turn our pens into AK-47 to liberate our country." He fought gallantly and intensely and has achieved that ultimate goal, that is independence of Namibia. Idi was a humble person who stood up for the marginalized and downtrodden, a defender of the poor, the workers. He didn't like corruption, sexism, and tribalism. I remember as a young activist, during our political discussions, we were encouraged to commit class suicide. Do we remember that? To rid ourselves of self-interest in order to wage the struggle for the independence of Namibia. Iggy was void of self-interest, and all he did before and after independence was in the interest of the Namibian nation. And I know that a lot of veterans, NANSO veterans, has died of self-interest. We have committed that class suicide. We have died of self-interest. I do not know anything as self-interest as well. In this independent Namibia, I have witnessed on TV people awarded all sorts of medals and other forms of recognition while still alive for the role they have played in the struggle for liberation. Unfortunately, Shuameni was not among those bestowed that honor. I want to believe he was excluded because he happens to be on the opposite side of the political spectrum. I vividly remember him quoting an African proverb at Owen Shamena's funeral. That was at Chifidi's many years ago. And I repeat, he said, "Until the lion tells his side of the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." That's what Shuameni said, implying that Owen died too early and he has not told the story. And Owen's story is told by the hunter. Shuameni's story is told by the hunter. I wish Shuameni had an opportunity to tell his story of glory and tribulations. The story of his life offers many lessons to us today. Lessons of courage, lessons on the limitless capacity for endurance, lessons on devotion to a mission and to a cause, no matter how long and painful the road. That is Shuameni. Lessons of love and compassion, lessons of selflessness and dedication, lessons of patriotism. We will draw inspiration from the lessons and from the life of Shuameni. A giant has fallen. Though no longer with us, the ideas for which he stood will not die. Farewell, Comrade Shuameni. May God receive your spirit in eternity. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, every door.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, every door.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, every door.
song says we are marching to Pretoria with our bazookas and AK-47s to claim Namibia's independence. I'm sure Comrade Bernard Alfico them on 3rd June 1988 when they got up 4 o'clock, was it 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock at Diebra and marched 25 kilometers to the capital Windhoek. That really sparked the student uprising in the central regions. And they came and disrupted all schools in Katutura. Some schools were busy writing exams, they tear up papers, and the rest is history. The Monday we organized a meeting at Chifiti because we were not organized, we were not prepared. So we organized a meeting with the parents, teachers. Chihomeni was supposed to go to his class at the academy, but instead he came to support us at Chifiti. And that's where he was arrested. He was so worried about the discussions that we're going to have and the decisions we're going to do. And as a national student leader, decided to come and support the branch, the Chifiti branch, in discussing the way forward. And he was arrested and we spent a whole month in jail. He was released again at academy, as Comrade Nambata was saying. He caused chaos and was again arrested after a few months, taken to same CA's political prison. That was Shukwameni for you. We'll ask Comrade Ronnie Tempest. Reminded me how my late comrade hero Shukwameni used to call me. He was not calling me Ronnie. He was calling me PJ. That was how he was affectionately referring to me. You say, let me greet you under this context, together with your children and the family. The first time that I really met Shukwameni, got exposed to him, was when he came to speak at, I think it was at Diebra, where he addressed us on the autonomy of the academy. That was the topic. And he really brought it up. And I was wondering, who is this young man who is talking so powerfully? And ever since then, it's true that, as Sister Bruce will say, Star had moved to Nodig. And that was typical of Shukwameni. I think many of the comrades have said something about what was happening here. And I would want to touch a little bit about our journey to Cuba, some reflections around that. But maybe more at a personal level. When we got married about now 26 years back, Shukwameni gave us a gift, which I still remember up to today together with my wife. It was a photo on which Jesus Christ was, or is. When I got the news about the passing of our comrade, it was the day, the 10th, that Uhuru called me. And I was literally at the civil station filling up because me and my wife decided to take off. And it really shattered me at that moment. But also living with the gift that he gave me. And that will be forever in remembrance. Of course, it's a great gift for us who believe in the life of Jesus Christ and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I came yesterday here quite shattered, but I was comforted by the words from Ecclesiastes 3 that says, there is time for everything. And we have time to fight together. And there is now the time to give back and to continue the journey from where he has left. There was a moment when we traveled together, I think I traveled to Joburg. I don't know what has happened, but
when I reached in Joburg, I realized that I was mixed up with passports. And the brewers took my passport, looked at the ticket, and called each other there. During those days, it was not easy to travel. You have to say either you were going to a church conference, that was the only way to leave the area. Those council of churches, people like Samson Dikona were behind those kinds of activities. And later on, as the boys were calling me into the small rooms, I realized the passport that they were looking at, it was the passport of Ignacio Shuamini. And I said, now I had to explain, but that is not my passport, here's my passport. And you can imagine what storm that can create. I think after independence, we were selected to go to Cuba. I don't know what criteria was used, but eventually we went. The three of us. Again, Shuamini demonstrated a great personal sacrifice because he was at least at an advanced stage. We all had plans, but I'm sure after independence, many of the people that were in the struggle were probably looking for positions and what role to play in an independent Namibia. But again, Shuamini took the plunge to say, let's go for 4 years to Cuba. And the journey to Cuba was an extension of the struggle for social justice. And in Cuba, Grace believed, and we came back with that belief to say, patria o muerte, venceremos. Fatherland or death, we will win. And I think that is one of the slogans that Shuamini kept the day of passing. That nothing else will stop him. His commitment to the fatherland, Namibia, was much greater than any allegiance that he can pledge to any comfort, to any political party alliance. And he was able to rise above that because he believed in Namibia and not necessarily in a political party. And he could transcend that. He could go beyond that because he was driven by that. I'm sure after spending those years, and we, believe me, after going to Cuba, we still continue to organize. Myself, Jane, and Shuamini, we still continue to organize the youth at the island of Cuba, where Namibians were in the different provinces of Cuba, forming Swabo Youth League structures, forming those structures. The political education program, we still continue building the Swabo movement up there because we believed in the project of solidarity, freedom, and justice. And that is the struggle that has kept people like Shuamini, and they took it quite seriously. And he took it quite seriously. And that is why I think after spending 4 years in Cuba, when he returned, he got quickly frustrated because he could see that the ship on which he climbed, with the banner solidarity and freedom and justice, was sinking, was hijacked, got stalled. And you can use whatever words that you want to describe. But you could easily see that this project is going nowhere. And that is why we had to change tactics and choose different vehicles, but still remaining committed to the cause for solidarity, freedom, and justice. Because he has demonstrated that those are the principles. The struggle was not about independence, as some would make us to believe. The struggle was not independence. The struggle was about solidarity, freedom, and justice. Those were the fundamental principles that rallied against which we were able to stand together and fight. And that is why we believed when we returned that, and he took it forward, and he took it extensively, forming other vehicles when one vehicle got stuck. Swabo was the first one that he had to depart. COD was the next one. I was together with him during his days of COD. Because we believed in the ideals of solidarity, freedom, and justice. And it was not about a political party affiliation, but it was about the cause and commitment. And please take no offense. I'm not saying we must necessarily change parties, but that is the tactic. We are talking about his life. And we're talking about the tactics that he has used to advance what he believed in: solidarity, freedom, and justice. And of course, after COD, he believed that ABB was the vehicle that he would use. But I think consistently we are seeing a trend and a threat that he remained committed to the cause for what he believed in. Therefore, I think a best tribute for us is not only about to reflect about the life of Shuameni. Heroes are not defined by a declaration from elsewhere, but heroes are declared through their deeds and through their actions. That is what defines a true hero. And that is why I think, as the veterans, I agree that Shuameni remains our hero. Shuameni has transcended and made personal sacrifices. Many have talked about the comfort that he has chosen voluntarily to leave behind. I'm sure those are not easy decisions to make. I'm sure those are difficult decisions to make, especially for a man with a family, a man that has to live a life before and choose to be labeled and castigated, but we choose the path. Patria or more, those principles. What is the task for us? And I think some of my comrades, like Comrade Arazab, Hebert, and many that have spoken here before me, have already said that we have a great responsibility, not only to reflect about his life, but I think the best tribute for us to take forward is to say we need a personal reflection, a deep personal reflection for each one of us at a personal level. Have a meeting with yourself and ask yourself, have I been faithful to this mission that we committed ourselves to from the 80s up to now? Where has this revolution that we committed ourselves to, what has happened to it? And I think those are the questions that we as individuals and as a collective needs to ask ourselves. I hope that we shall not wait for another opportunity to lay each other to rest, where we shall again come to make similar statements of each other. And I would like to call us to, early in next year, think about a moment and a platform to reflect around this project, the Namibia we chased. How far have we traveled with that? And I think we need to work towards that project. And that will be, I think, a best tribute that we as the NANSO veterans can give to ourselves and to the generations that are to come. If we fail to do this, I believe history will judge us. And let me repeat, history will judge us harshly. And history is already starting to judge us. And it will be more harsh. Patria o muerte, venceremos. Can you say that with me? Patria o muerte! Patria o muerte! Those were the things that have inspired people like Shuameni, because we came from people like Castro, Raul Castro, and those people. And I think that is the spirit that has really inspired. So, children, especially you are bringing to a great father who remain committed to the principles of fatherland, sacrificing for the sake of others rather than your own comfort. That's the principle that he stood for. And that's something to cherish for. May you find God's strength. Thank you.
Hai bandula iki
Hai bandula iki, hai bandula iki.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ronnie Dembers, for those words from the island. We'll have our almost second last speaker, Comrade Rosalia Shipiki.
Our widow, Mimi Shifameni, as the news of the timely death of Shifameni reached me, I was initially very grief-stricken, and then I decided to go memory lane, and I started to reminisce with nostalgia about a great life lived and how a powerful disruptor he was in terms of shaping the future of the youth and the future of SWAPO. Shifameni was SG of NANSO, and together with Paul Kalenga, were perfectly aligned in terms of their commitment to transform politics, to transform the youth, to transform the women through the platform at that time that they chose as their home to be SWAPO. But their commitment was to the transformation of the Namibian society, and not necessarily like it was presented here, of people that wanted to enrich themselves. Shifameni was very articulate, a deep thinker, and like Madiba, he was always of the view that the greatest equalizer is education. Hence that slogan, education is a right and not a privilege. And that speaks mostly to a class society, a classless society, where if you are educated, you can break the barriers down for your family and for your community. You can transform Africa, you can transform Namibia. But I think he shunned opulence, he shunned luxurious lifestyle. He was always very simple. I will definitely not give him the best dressed person in the world. But it was really never about that for him. It was more about what can he do to transform society. Also, I remember at most of the NANSO congresses, we were very idealistic, and I'll remember the late Kangwachivi, and they would speak all the semantics that we don't even understand about a classless society, about Karl Marx, and we were like, oh my God, is this now Oxford or is this Cambridge? But we aspire to become them. Personally, I was part of the 1988 branch leaders in Walvisbay. At that time, Walvisbay was part of South Africa. So we were arrested, and after we were arrested, Iggy was then, I think, the Secretary General. He played an instrumental role that we don't disappear, that we are being heard, that we just don't disappear from the platform. So he took personal interest in making sure that there were national demonstrations, that we could get out of prison. And we were released from prison on the 9th of February 1990 because of the political breakthrough in negotiation in South Africa. So we were also released from that. But Walvisbay remained an enclave of South Africa. And when I got out of prison, the first thing he said to me is that there's going to be this big speaking tour in Europe where we have to convince the international community why Walvisbay is part of Namibia and not part of South Africa. So there I went on my first aeroplane ride. Oh, I was so excited. Yeah, so but he was very instrumental. Also, I think we also need to mention that both Paul Kalenga and Sufameni believe in women's empowerment. You know, sometimes I hear these men, they talk about women empowerment, but they don't live it. They don't understand it. Sometimes you see leadership and it's the weakest woman that you'd ever find in the room, and then they must represent our aspirations. But sometimes you really, really need. Uhuru, it's not meant to be a joke.
I'm trying, comrade. I'm trying.
So and they would nurture us, they would groom us, and most importantly, they would not take sexual advances against us. I was never proposed by any of my comrades because they were just so respectful, and I think they had a bigger vision. I mean, Nambata, who was here, was our role model always. During that time, I think the biggest thing, I think I was the secretary for Women Affairs, and the biggest issue for us was teenage pregnancies. And the leadership and my comrades at that time knew that you could not talk about women's empowerment and also abuse women or also take for granted women. I think that's why a lot of us grew up to be very professional and hardworking. Okay, Uhuru, I need to be protected from I need to be protected. But I think from my side, I will remember Shifwamini as somebody who was very brave, very courageous. He was a lone voice sometimes, and like all previous speakers have said here, why would you give up all of that great life to go and be isolated, to be alienated, to be called names? African politics is very harsh. And especially it's very harsh on those that don't conform to what the powers that be is. Sometimes I find it very funny, like I think Nambato said about what was fashionable. And sometimes now I think what is fashionable is those that are smart enough and will know how to loot.
Shame on them.
They go very far in terms of the trajectories in their careers. They don't want honest people anymore. Honest people are being alienated, they are being excluded. But I also understand because they didn't go through the school that we went through, that you must aspire for a classless society. Yes, you might not reach it, but you can at least try to say everybody has shelter, they have food, they have a home. And if we are sitting at the table, let some crumbs fall from that table onto other people. But now we have such a big, huge gap in income equality. Some people can boast about the fact that those that are criticizing are those that are not eating. But I don't want to eat like that. I don't want to eat like that. And it's an insult to want to eat like that. So I don't want to be called that. But I also understand it's ignorance. You hijack the political system that you didn't understand. So you're looking at it from a very superficial level. It's not deep. So heroes don't die. He will not die. And I see the debate about whether he's a hero or not a hero, will he go to heroes, Eka or not. It's neither here nor there. He has made an impact. Yes. And that's all what matters. Some people could be jealous of that type of power that him and Paul Kalenga at that time, they exude big power. But he remained very, very humble. And the children, please be very, very proud that you had a cool deadness. Yeah. He was very cool in that way. And I think if he was given the opportunity, I think he will be the type of person that will make sure everybody has food, everybody has shelter. I'm not against private wealth in private individuals' hands, It's okay if you work hard for it, you deserve it. Kudos to you. But don't loot our tax to fund your lifestyle. Thank you.
The prison warders were giving us the weekly mail from South Africa. So there we read about some comrades that went prison that went on hunger strike. Like there was one comrade that went for quite more than a month on hunger strike. So we went on hunger strike. The mistake we made is to keep our morale high, we were singing. And that really made us weak. You know, when we were getting up to use the bathroom, when you turn around, the next moment you realize you're on the ground. That's how weak we were. But thanks to the students, workers, and church solidarity, there was a national boycott, national strike for 2 days called by the National Union of Namibian Workers. And part of their demand was our release. And 2 days after that national strike, we walked free and could attend the NANSO Congress, which we really didn't want to miss. And that was the reason for our hunger strike. We were saying there's no way, June is ending, Congress is coming, we have to go to Congress. Yeah. Before I call on our senior president to close the events, I want to give now a chance to the current leadership. I understand Comrade Sherenu's.
When we were elected into leadership in 2010 at the Windhoek Technical High School, the late Comrade Senior Ignatius Shuameni paid us a visit just after we had taken over the leadership. And then he delivered a message which we can still vividly remember until this point in time. Comrade Shuameni told us that being a student leader means, number one, being selfless. You need to put the interest of the students before anything else. And he reminded us that being a student leader is not an easy task. It's one whereby you need to attend NANSO meetings during daytime and having to do your assignments or study for the exam late in the night. And at the same time making sure that you had to pass your exam. And as he concluded, he left us with 2 tasks that evening. The first one was to say the NANSO leadership by then seemed to be that of the Windhoek based. He said that as a leadership, we needed to go back in the region and ensure that we set up structures in the regions instead of people having to come from regions and being elected into Windhoek. So this evening, I'm here to come and report that indeed we had delivered on that task. Right now, the current leadership can attest to that. The NANSO is having structures in all the 14 regions of our country. And then the second task which we were given was to ensure that there is free tertiary education in our lifetime. Of course, on the part of free tertiary education in our lifetime, not to say we failed the task, but our term of office came to an end. That's my privilege. Our term of office came to an end, so we have to take over. So now I'm here to pass on this here to the current leadership.
Yeah.
The only befitting honor that we can give to Comrade Iggy is to ensure that we engage the current administration to ensure that we work around the modalities on how to achieve this free tertiary education. But we asked in that particular time, but Comrade Iggy, how do we go about getting tertiary education free in our lifetime? We thought, no, Comrade, Namibia is a very rich country. It has got the mineral resources, it has got the fish. So let the fishing quota be given to NASFAF to fund the operations of the organization, if need be. Let the diamonds of Namibia pay for the education of a Namibian child. Let the uranium of the country pay for the education of the Namibian child. So, to the current generation of NANSO, please let's pick up the spear and continue the fight. I thank you, comrades.
Thank you very much to the Berit family. My name is Ephraim Dalipopoulos, the former recent past Secretary General of the United Nations. Yes. Well, I was elected in the last Congress that we had, and as you may be aware, the organization is about to have its next Congress, but of course, due to the pandemic, we could not have the Congress. But nonetheless, we continue to pass on the baton to ensure that leadership progresses. Therefore, now I read the speech on behalf of the current acting president of NANSO, who unfortunately could not be with us here today due to academic commitments. Speaking from a student leadership perspective, when specifically looking at the Honorable late Shifameni's journey, one cannot help but notice his fearless and non-conforming character. It has been inspiring to us as student leaders who are fighting for quality, equitable and inclusive education, in that we must bravely and relentlessly speak out on issues that gravely affect our constituents. And that we should not only be placeholders in organizations, but we should make impactful and meaningful contributions in the spaces that we occupy. Now, in NANSO, we have a saying that says that NANSO is the school of leadership. And the late Shifameni was a true representative of this statement. His time leading the organization was one of the periods that equipped him to assume further political leadership roles, which we have seen. The organization has seen him being elected into the national parliament in the late 90s, in the late 90s, which set a precedent for other young people's abilities to contribute to significant platforms such as the National Assembly. If anything, once again, a great lesson we can learn from the late Honorable Shifameni, it is that we should not only dream and think of our ideal Namibia, but actively fight for the Namibia we want to live in. A true example of patriotism. It is shocking to see many it is not shocking to see many gathered here to honor the life of a true revolutionary and a courageous man that dedicated much of his youthful years to the struggle for independence, mobilizing students across all corners of Namibia to fight the oppressive forces that in many ways stood in the way of freedom of Namibians. This is a great man. A hero of our land and an inspiration to all of us. The late Shifameni was an instrumental figure in student activism. He served as the Secretary General of NANSO, a position that I also had, and I have the honor to do. I'm very humbled to have served as Secretary General. Members present, we stand on the shoulders of this great giant leader. We walk the footsteps of a fearless fighter. The patriotism he has portrayed over the years in his work as a former student activist and as one of Namibia's longest-serving members of parliament will never go unnoticed. It remains inscribed in the heart of those he touched and will forever be treasured. Neither time nor reason will be able to fill the void that has been created ultimately by his departure. His great impact on the trajectory of education pre and post independence will always be cemented in the history of Namibia. Bereaved mourners, family members and friends, comrades, in times such as this, we turn to scripture for consolation. Comrade Shivameni was a believer in God and a former student at Dobra, we are informed. In Proverbs 3 verse 5, and it reads, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding." Your own understanding. This is the challenge for all of us. Attempts to understand the works of God are an exercise in futility. We should rather trust our comrade rest in the bosom of God. To the wife and children of Comrade Shivameni, Psalms 46 verse 10 calls you in this time to be still and know that He is God. I will be exalted among the nations, and I will be exalted in the earth. This is the word of God. We pray for you and with you during this difficult time. We also, as an organization, commit to be here. We are your children now. We are you. To the children, we are your sisters and brothers, and we are here to give you the support that you need in this time. May the soul of Comrade Shivameni rest in eternal peace. I thank you. The speech is over, but we have resolution 16, and we are pushing for it for free tertiary education in Namibia. Thank you.
Just 2 days before Shivameni passed on, I don't know what led me to call Louis, not Shivameni. But I called Louis and I was asking, we were here for sometime a month or 2 months ago for the Shivameni's birthday. And Shivameni has asked me to stand. When they got married, I was the master of ceremony at their wedding. And then they wanted to celebrate their anniversary. I don't know what year the anniversary was. 25th. They wanted to celebrate their 25th anniversary, and he asked me to do the job again, to be a master of ceremony. Then 2 days before that, it was in my mind all the time. Then I said, when is it? Is it in December or is it in November? I'm trying to find whether he has given a date. So I'm calling Madam Comrade Louis, and then he said, no, we will let you know. But I'm not in the country now. Well, he's not in Windhoek. Don't know whether it's Zambezi or Cape Town. I don't know that you were on those. So I just want to express that something was already in my mind, thinking about my confidant, my friend, and my comrade. Maybe before that, let me just join thousands of voices who are expressing their words of consolation and condolences to Louisa and the children, Winnie, Pando, to go through this difficult time. We are all with you in this difficult time. Then coming back to Shivameni, really, I was elected as the president of NANSO. I was quite young, I think. Very young, very slim, with some bodies that when we are talking, you think these are older people than me. And in that time, I was at the University of Western Cape in South Africa. And in fact, my terms of office was probably the most difficult time when NANSO was really in transition, trying to establish itself, trying to learn lessons why other previous attempts forming a student organization in Namibia did not work. It means strategic thinking. It means looking for alliances. And it was not an easy task, as our student now leader here just said. What Swamini told them, that being a student leader is not easy. So at the first Congress, I was elected as a president and then left for Cape Town. Most of our activities were really university-based, driven outside the country. We really didn't have a strong presence inside the country, except at Diabra, Dr. Haupigu testified it, and few other schools. But when it comes to government schools, NANSO was not allowed to get close there. So we were almost sort of alienated, and you cannot build a Namibia student organization while you are in South Africa as such. So we really needed strong presence inside the country. We had now to have a strategy really to organize high school students, to mobilize them. This Academy of Learning, which was being taught about here, it was completely a no-go area. We were not allowed to come near it. So we have also to have a strategy. Then Suhameni and the group of the Maureen, Dambata, all of you who were at that time at the academy, started to organize themselves. But I think it was more because of Suhameni, who really, there is chaos. They are in jail. So it just shows that Suhameni is really a transformative leader. And then we came to the Congress. Now when you come to the Congress, all the branches, they give their report. What did it do in the year? How many students did you recruit? The academic branch performed very well. And Suhameni was the one presenting that report as the chairman. Then I look at this boy, and I said, I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. For myself, I was thinking I was selfish. I needed somebody inside the country who can really, transform educational institutions. And it happened. And that's why today I pay tribute to him from my own very selfish perspective, that I would not have succeeded to build this organization without his support. He was dedicated. He was truthful and honest. You argue, you debate. We sometimes don't sleep. I sometimes even sleep at the academy, at his room, because we have to talk and strategize. But I also want to pay tribute to all of you who were part of the team. We were really dedicated. I used to call them my cabinet. And Pastor Day was my finance minister. No wonder now when I see the pastor, then I said, no wonder. We were so young and we were getting donations of thousands of rents that time from overseas, but we have not had any corruption case in NANSO at our time. We were managing even something like 100,000, but there has not been a corruption case. We organize meetings, whether it's a Sunday, whether it's a Saturday, sometimes early in the morning until night. Nobody comes late. I had a loyal cabinet. So it's not only a tribute to Suhameni, but it's a tribute to all of us. And I think Dorsaria also mentioned about women. And I think we believed it was not a fashionable thing to do. We believed that without involvement of women, NANSO is not a truly student body. And I'm so happy that most of the women who are here, Nambata, Victoria, Rosalie, you were all secretaries for women. And you are here today. Can you see? Let me then come back to, I don't have a speech, but we are here just to celebrate the life of our comrade. And somebody just said Chouameni, I don't know, I think Rosalia who said Chouameni is quite protective, quite honest and truthful, and what he does, he wants to protect others while he's putting himself in danger. During the uprising, I know then I was teaching now. I'm a student president, but I'm a teacher now. When I graduated from Cape Town, I was having a roasting scholarship. So then I said, no, I'm not going to work for the capitalist institution. And then the whole cabinet, the Chouameni, they are focusing. What do? We cannot maybe allow him to go there. Then I have to work. I have to earn something. Now, Busy was teaching at Martin Luther. He went to speak to the principal at Martin Luther High School. And he says, we want our president to come there teaching, but also being a president of NANSO. Now, what I want to say is, during the crisis, then I want to come to Windu. Chouameni will not allow me to come. He said, all of us are going to jail. We need somebody outside. And that's why you normally don't see me in those pictures, because I was prevented to come to Windu by my cabinet here. They all know, they Uhuru them. Sometimes the National Executive Committee meetings have to be held at my school now in Omaruru, in Okumbahe. They all had to travel so that I do not come to Windu, particularly during the crisis. Something that I wanted to tell, to share with you about Chouameni and also about ourselves is I was always thinking, why do we call each other comrades? Why? Who is a comrade really? Because it's almost just, you can call anybody a comrade. For me, a comrade is a very strong word. It's your companion. It's somebody you share values. It's somebody either you went through an experience together, which you cherish, you suffer together, you maybe enjoy together. So, comradeship is something that needs to be given a meaning. We need to give each other the meaning of what really a comradeship is. And exactly the character of late Chouameni is what comradeship is all about. It's respect for each other. It's humbleness. It's selflessness when you relate to each other. That is what the word really comrade means in my mind. It can mean other things probably, but in my mind, that's what it means. And I think we have all exhibited that during our time in NANSO. A lot of people have spoken already around, although we are celebrating the life of our comrade, we are also reflecting about our contribution that we are making to our society. The only thing we can celebrate his life is really also to make sure that we are making a contribution to our people. And one does not want to go into a speech of politics, but let's be serious about governance in Namibia, about accountability in Namibia, about how we use our resources in Namibia. Previous speakers, particularly Rosalie, I think he has already talking about corruption. Corruption is a new struggle now that we need to fight against. But it's a complex struggle. It's no more like a struggle for what we are doing about for independence. It's really complex. And I think if we want to fight poverty, if we want to fight inequality, if we want to fight for development, let's watch corruption is a stumbling block in our fight. I'm talking because I have been a little bit outside the country for some time, working in SADC and within the African context. And if we think this is something just a wind that will pass, this wind will become consolidated and it will be difficult to root out. It happens in Zimbabwe, it's happening everywhere. And I think it is our call to respect the life of our late comrade, our fight for good governance, anti-corruption, and laying the foundation for anything that we want to do. Without that framework, whatever we do will go to waste because it will end up in the hands of few people. And it will expand inequality. And expanding inequality would mean our political gains of independence will die, just like it dies in many parts of Africa. So let me again pay tribute to my confidant, to my friend, to my comrade. You meant so much for me. We traveled a journey. That journey was a learning path, and that learning has brought us to where we are now. We salute you, comrade, we salute you. We salute you, comrade, we salute you. We salute you, comrade, we salute you. We salute you forever. We remember, comrade, we remember. We remember, comrade, we remember. We remember, comrade, we remember. We remember forever. In meditation, we salute you, comrade, we salute you. We salute you, comrade, we salute you. We salute you forever.
Once we are standing, we hope the members of the National Honors Committee were here or were listening on the live streaming. And I hope they will make the right decision as requested by many Namibians, but also by this group of activists to favorably consider declaring Comrade Ignatius Kotongo Ikishifameni a national hero. But if that does not happen, we that were there, we that know better, we have no doubt to declare Ignatius Ikwameni a national hero. Full stop. With this, I want to thank the family for their patience, for their understanding. We have overstayed our welcome. The children, I hope you have picked up one or two. We are making a commitment, and comrades, please don't disappoint me that these things we're talking very soon, before the end of next year, a book will come out about the history, the true history of the contribution of the students and youth of the 80s towards independence of Namibia. And Comrade Chikwameni will definitely have a chapter in that book. We have been struggling to come up with that book for some time. Comrade Bisi will lead that project, and Comrade Kalenga will supervise. And it shall happen before the end of 2022. Thank you so much, Director of Ceremony. Comrade Kabomburu, the Chief Operations Officer of this operation.
Come on, guerrilla! Guerrilla! Up, guerrilla! Guerrilla! Come on, guerrilla! Guerrilla! Say down! This is the culture. Petrol bomb! Petrol bomb! Viva NANSO! Viva! Viva Swamini! Viva! Etevo mitanda yo NANSO matukongere Namibia letu. Etevo mitanda This is a producer of what we want to do in 2 days' time, if everything goes well.